The Cleveland Guardians, in the year of a name change, following in the footsteps of the Washington football team, win their division. Now, in the interest of being intellectually honest about my thought processes on our predictions, I thought the White Sox were going to pull through. I picked the White Sox to win the division out the gate. I think if you go back and watch like our preseason predictions for each division, I had the White Sox, but I did have a little caveat. I was like, if you wanted a dumb team to sneak into the MLB playoffs, you want a team that no one is talking about, watch it be the Cleveland Guardians. And sure enough, the Guardians are going to be dancing in October. Be fun to see how far they can go. One of baseball's better stories, honestly, just in terms of this team, because early on, Kyle, you were talking about them as a tanking team. You thought they were going to be really bad.
Yes.
You thought they were going to be
I thought Cleveland was going to be bad. I will also give you props because I believe it was June 24th. We recorded a video about the AL Central and the Guardians being on a big win streak. And you said Cleveland could get it done. And I said, probably not going to happen, but it's a fun story. And then they ended up like crapping right after that, but they ended up winning the division in the end anyways. So props to you for getting it right, backing down on that, and then ending up being right in the long run. Stick to your convictions, my friend. And it's cool that they won the division because I would have just been flabbergasted by that at the start of the season. I would have said, if any team, it's going to be the Twins, but the White Sox are just so far ahead because the entire AL Central should be disbanded and all of the teams should go to another division. And that still rings true. It just, the White Sox were such an absolute dumpster fire this season, both with injuries and the inevitable fact that Tony La Russa was a bad coaching hire before he ended up having to leave because of medical concerns. And everything went south, for pun intended, everything went south for the boys on the South side this year. And into the void entered the Cleveland Guardians, who, like last year's Boston Red Sox, I mean, they have like 2 stars on the team, but for the most part, it's everyone is playing slightly above average.
Yeah, they're playing above average, but you got to say that at least starting part of their rotation, when you have Bieber and Mckenzie out there, those are 2 solid horses to have at the top of any rotation. And I will say this, when we talk about postseason baseball and what wins in October, having 2 aces is a valuable thing, something that not a lot of teams can necessarily tout. I look at the Mariners as a team that I think has some upside, just given like what they can run out there with like Robbie Ray and Luis Castillo. Similar stroke, I would say that the Guardians have that. When you talk about what Emmanuel Clase has done at the back of their bullpen as well, you have that with the rotation. You could do some damage here. And then we obviously know how good Jose Ramirez is too in their lineup, piece that you could just plug in anywhere and he's going to produce. I don't know how magical this season can turn into for them. Obviously, you got the big boys, you got the Yankees, you have the Astros that are consistently good. I mentioned I like the Mariners a little bit more than them, a team that's very similar to them, at least a team that I consider in that same tier, but I think has more dark horse potential. But I will say, I love what the season that the Guardians were able to put together. And then you have a World Series manager in Terry Francona. I always thought it was kind of like weird too, that the Guardians were entering potentially a long rebuild while also having Francona stick around, because Francona's a guy that's been able to elevate teams in the past, and not having him in the October rotation of managers was kind of weird, because I feel like he's one of the few true managers still left in baseball. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a lot of the guys too that are managing today that are pretty much guys that get their starting lineup from upstairs. Not too many guys are on the field level like Francona is.
Absolutely. And all of this whole run for the Guardians, what's going to probably be the next 2 years, what they can project for a team that's going to be at the top of the AL Central, is going to be about Terry Francona and his last run as a manager of a baseball team. Obviously, he's getting up there in age. He's had medical concerns in the past. They're expecting he'll retire sometime in the near future. And this is kind of his last run at having a great team. And I will also point out one thing, because you mentioned it. We were actually recording a show in March of this year when the breaking news came in that Jose Ramirez signed the extension. And if you go back to watch that video, we were both like, that's interesting. He's going to kind of like power at the middle of the order while the Guardians lose a bunch of games. And lo and behold, their bats were great this year. I'm so fascinated by that Lindor trade now. And it's a weird thing that I've been stuck on for the last 2 months or so, because at the All-Star break this year, Rosario, who is the center fielder, I believe now, or shortstop, but he platoons. Rosario, who is the key piece in the Lindor trade, had the exact same OPS as Lindor. And the young piece they got in the trade, Andres Gimenez, started at second base in the All-Star game. And if you want to point to a win-win trade, win for the Mets, win for the Guardians, that was a fantastic job. When they traded Mike Clevenger, they got back Josh Naylor and Austin Hedges and Cal Quantrill from the Padres, all of whom are contributing to an excellent season for them. And praising management sometimes is not my style, but Chernoff, I believe, is the GM of the Guardians. And if Brian Cashman and the Yankees come to an understanding of parting ways, possibly look for him to be one of the leading candidates there in New York.
Ooh, don't tell Cleveland fans that. Leaving for New York, it's like you just spoke blasphemy into this video.
Yeah, I mean, it's either him or the Brewers guy. If you're looking for the people who do more with less in baseball, you know, Billy Beane had a book written about him, so obviously we know that name. But if you're looking for people in today's baseball who do more with less, the Brewers and the Guardians are doing an excellent job at that.
You mentioned Gimenez. Gimenez was a great piece too. Steven Kwan too, NL Player of the Week this past week. So they've just, like you said, just been able to manufacture, find guys to plug and play throughout their lineup, and all guys that have added to this run. And I hope to see the most out of it. You mentioned potentially what's next for like Terry Francona. Can he see like one last ride? I don't know if, is it this postseason? Doubt it. But what do you think of the Guardians just as a team of the future? Obviously they locked up their main bat with Ramirez and the young guys at the top of their rotation.
You know, I said all season long, whoever wins the AL Central will inevitably lose to the 6th seed in the wild card round of the playoffs. But now that we're here, you know what? Why can't Cleveland win a wild card series? Why can't they get the right to be blown out by the New York Yankees in the second round? They can pull it off. Tampa, they can beat them. Why not? Obviously, Shane Bieber is going to start game 1, and then Triston McKenzie will slot in there. You know what? Why not Cleveland pulling off a big victory going into the playoffs? And in terms of the future, this thing is totally sustainable for Cleveland. I will say, like, the model and examples that I pointed to, which was Boston last year, totally fell off this year, more so injuries than say lack of productivity. But it's a little bit of both. So obviously it's a fluctuating place. I still think the White Sox have more talent, and the White Sox will most likely either medically or otherwise replace Tony La Russa as manager at the end of this season. So perhaps that gets things back on track a little bit for Chicago, but Cleveland's going to be at least competitive for the next few years. And this will be as I said earlier, I guess the quote unquote last ride for Terry Francona.
All righty, guys. What do you think of the Guardians this postseason? Do you think they have an opportunity to advance very far in October? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow us on social media at Juju Talk Sports. Find Kyle's social medias as well in the bio. Stay safe, happy, and healthy, and we'll see you on the next one.